Sailor Bill McCoy was a daring sailor boy.
Without any consultation with my piano teacher, I went out and got a folio of ragtime music because all the music stores were filling their shelves with ragtime because, like I said, America was going bonkers again for it. I just buried myself in my dad's study, which is where our piano was. I closed the door, and instead of being begged by my mother to put in my 30 minutes, I was begged by my parents to come eat dinner because I'd been in there for 2 hours. And I did eventually tell my piano teacher, and he was like, "This is way too advanced for you. I just don't want you to get your hopes up." And he was like tamping down all my enthusiasm. But I said, "No, I think I can do it." And I did. I did. After several months, my teacher said I wasn't just playing it, I was playing it well. And for the first time, I had that feeling you get when you do something really well. If you've never had that feeling, pursue it. Pursue it, because everyone needs that feeling of having done something well. There's something you can do well. It's just that you either haven't found it or you haven't recognized it in yourself. I will speak to the fact that I was very privileged. White, middle class, wasn't rich. My dad was a teacher, my mom a nurse. So they weren't making a lot of money, but the thing that was great about my parents is if they saw me really interested in something, I'm not talking about some flight of fancy, here today, gone tomorrow. When they see that I had paid enough attention to something for a given period of time, they would swoop in and support me with all the resources they could afford. Not always everything, but in my case, it was a piano and private piano lessons. That was big. Not everyone gets that. So my parents, in their continued support of this passion I had for ragtime, found out that in Sedalia, the home of Scott Joplin in the late 19th and early 20th century, where he wrote Maple Leaf Rag and many of his earliest, most popular rags, had a ragtime festival. So here I was being told that there's not only like a gathering, but like a festival dedicated to ragtime. I was to the moon, man, and I was begging my parents to take me down there. And this would have been the second year of their festival in 1975 in Sedalia. And by then, I could play Maple Leaf Rag, Sunflower Slowed Rag, Swipe Sea Cakewalk. I could play about 8 to 10 rags, and I'm now 14 years old, okay? So I'm like excited beyond words. We got in there the day before the festival began, and that evening, I found out they were having a concert of local piano students who had learned like the simplified version of the Entertainer and the easy versions. Somehow they got word that I was visiting from out of state and that I was also a piano student, play ragtime. So they were like, "Here, come on up and play a couple of tunes if you can." There were a lot of people there. It had a main stage, lots of folding chairs that filled this facility. And up on the stage was this grand piano. So if you're not already figuring out where this is going, I got up there. I played Maple Leaf Rag and Sunflower Slowed Rag, and I don't mind my saying, I killed it. I totally upstaged everyone else who was playing. The one poor girl who had to follow me was like begging not to, and I felt great. The crowd applauded. The lights were bright. I was seeing the dream that I had when I was 8 years old being fulfilled, and it felt great. From that point, I was kind of a rock star for the event because I was the only 14-year-old kid who could play as many rags as I could with apparently the passion and gusto that the old-timers and the professionals admired. And I was in the ninth heaven, okay? I met Rudy Blesh, who wrote They All Played Ragtime. He and I became friends during my time in Kansas City, which I'll talk about in a moment. I met Max Morath. Google these names and you'll know who they are, but these are ragtime legends. Max Morath, Dick Zimmerman, William Balcom, Some of you like his Graceful Ghost. It's a popular contemporary rag that he wrote. Talk to him. The New England Conservatory Ragtime Ensemble, who released the album the same year the Sting was released, called The Redback Book, that won a Grammy and was platinum album. They were playing, okay? And I met David Refkin, who was first violinist, and David and I became friends. I can't begin to express to you how pivotal this event was in my life, because in attendance at this event was a guy by the name of Jack Ralston, who was the dean of the conservatory libraries at the University of Missouri in Kansas City. And he invited me to apply for a young, gifted, and talented program that they had started. It was called a CLEP program for young and gifted musicians. You would apply, you would audition, and if you got in, you would be taking college-level piano performance and music theory classes. And I was just starting high school, and for me that was like, holy cow, now it's like getting real. This shit's getting real up here, you know? And I was like, sure. I mean, I went back down in the spring of the following year, 1976, America's bicentennial, and as luck would have it, my grandparents happened to be living in Kansas City. I'd spent a lot of summers in Kansas City, no stranger to the town. My grandparents and cousins live there, my uncle. My family's from Kansas City. Yeah, the logistics of attending the University of Missouri Conservatory were no problem for me. I just had to audition, and I remember going down in the spring. I could not play ragtime because this is 1976. Conservatories, as many are now, are all about the classics only, white ethno-European music. That's it. We don't want anything else, and certainly not ragtime. So I had prepared a piece by Shostakovich, something by Chopin for my interview or for my audition, and they accepted me. So the next summer, I was now spending my time in Kansas City living with my grandparents, who were pretty up there in years. And, you know, here I am, a 15-year-old boy having to take the 5:30 a.m. city bus to downtown, well, not downtown, but it's an area by the Nelson Atkins Art Gallery. That's where the conservatory is. It's by a shopping center called the Plaza. So I'm going down there alone on a bus, and I'm showing up for the first theory class that starts 7:30, 2 hours of theory. Then it's a piano lesson, a piano lesson from my second piano teacher. And while my first piano teacher was kind, encouraging, gracious, supportive, my second piano teacher, Gertrude Muller, was a can I say Nazi? I mean, apologies to my German friends, but she really was. I'm pretty sure that she had connections to the SS because she was brutal. I don't know where to begin. First of all, I like to play ragtime. Nein! You shall not play ragtime. Ragtime will destroy your technique. If you want to take lessons from me, no ragtime. All right. Personally, I was going to go on anyway. I didn't care what the old bitch said, but I fell in line and made her at least think that I would do what she asked me to do. And what she asked was that I spend at least 2 hours in practice. And she began with scales and arpeggios. She began with some Hanon exercises, but not a lot. It was mostly scales and arpeggios. But she was so meticulous in what she demanded of me, in what she considered the proper execution of scales and arpeggios. So she always held in her hand, while I was playing my scales and arpeggios for her at a lesson, this little ruler. And she would, if I made a mistake or I hadn't followed the instructions, it'd be whap, whap, whap on my knuckles. And she would just say, 999. And I am confident that's where my performance anxiety came from.
Sailor Bill McCoy was a daring sailor boy. His ship got wrecked a while on a Fiji isle. He led a savage life and hunted with a knife.